Oops, gotta do the got it thing.
Okay, right. Well, welcome everybody. Delighted to see so many familiar faces and some new faces with us today. Here we are on the 10th gathering. This is the 10th in the series of the Inside Out Transformation book celebratory sessions, gatherings. Delighted today to have one of the contributors to the book, Judith Sedgeman. And I was reflecting before I started, and I always read the chapters through, and just flicking through the chapters again, just the gratitude I was feeling that these wonderful 15 people were gracious enough to give me their time, allow me to interview them, and be able to have it all in one place. It just wouldn't have happened without them. And then being here with us now as well to give us their time to be able to ask questions and delve a little bit deeper and see what else we can hear, learn, understand. So thank you, Judy, for being here today. It's
my pleasure.
Yeah, love it. So I'm just going to read out a little bit of your official bio so that people get a sense of who you are, because I'm hoping that there'll be people that see these recordings that have never heard of you or me or the Inside Out Understanding. Who knows, you know? So, Judith Sedgeman has been a 3 principles practitioner and educator for more than 3 decades, serving individuals and groups from all walks of life in the USA and abroad. She's a frequent seminar speaker, and a very good one at that, and web program developer in the principles. So she's had a really, as I was reading it through, a very varied, colourful work history, from being an English teacher to a prize-winning reporter, an editor, an entrepreneur, an associate with Pransky and Associates, and faculty of the Medical School of West Virginia University. And she's also the author of a book about the evolution of the understanding of the principles, told through her life experiences. And she's a wonderful storyteller that I do know.
Thank you.
And it's called It All Started with a Bird. And we were just saying that before we hit record, and also the co-founder of a wonderful podcast, weekly podcast called Psychology Has It Backwards, with her lovely friend and colleague, Christine Heath.
Yeah.
So I think that sets the stage a little bit for who you are, Judy. Judy, just a sliver of who you are. So thank you again for being here. So what we do on these sessions usually is we'll talk for we'll have a conversation for half an hour, but really keen, and Judy said as well, she loves receiving questions, answering questions. So please feel free to raise your digital hand, and definitely the last half an hour will be dedicated to all of you here with us today. So yeah, as I was reading through the chapter, one of the things that was really, really clear from you sharing your answers was how important peace of mind is. You know, I think the very first question, sort of somewhere along the line, was what's the driver behind the way you work? And when you ask yourself, it really is that you want peace on earth. I think that's what you said.
Right.
And I think, well, me too. And I bet every single person in this room would say, me too. But that being the driver, the peace of mind, why is that? I'm going to use it, the ultimate answer, which is Sydney Banks's, what he called the name of the last video. Why is that the ultimate answer for us?
Well, you know, that's a great question, Sheila, because when I first heard about the principles and everybody was talking about deep feelings and peace of mind, my memory went right to kind of like hippiedom, you know, and I thought, oh yeah, right, well, I'll just be lying around in hammocks and nothing will get done and the world will come to a screeching halt and everybody will be living on a commune. And, you know, I had this kind of shallow pop psych version in my mind. And so I remember asking, who did I ask first? I think it was Elsie Spittle. And because I went to a course in Tampa, and she was living in Tampa, Florida at the time, and she and Chip Chipman and Rick Suarez, who was no longer part of the group, were doing this class. And I said to Elsie, you know, what's the big deal with peace of mind? I mean, you know, like everybody I knew was like hard driving, challenged, you know, working. And Elsie just laughed and she said, well, you know, when you find it for yourself, you'll know what it means. And I said, find it for myself. I mean, like, I lost it when I got my business started, and I was really kind of surprised by that. But what happened is, in the course of this 3-day seminar that I was involved in, everybody got very, very quiet. And the whole feeling of why we were there changed from we came to learn something to we came to experience something. It's subtle, but we just stopped thinking about it and started feeling it. And when people would raise their hand, they would share something rather than tell something or give an example of what somebody just said or that kind of thing. And when I think back on it, it was very subtle, but you couldn't miss it because you're part of it. And so to me, that became so important, because I realized driving home from that seminar in the car, as a matter of fact, I had my first really big insight about my business and, why it was so frustrating and why I was so tired. And, which was very simple. All I did is think all day long, think. And I never took time to reflect, and I never expected my clients to have an answer for themselves. So I felt this burden of having to always come up with answers for other people. And I felt so different. And I started to have a whole new vision for peace of mind. And then I realized, as time went by, I saw, peace of mind is being able to be quiet and listen. Peace of mind is being confident in the stillness within ourselves. And also, peace of mind is faith that other people aren't broken, that you're not living in a world of people that are shattered and upset and ruined, and that all the things that we criticize about other people or the things that we fear about other people are nothing more than their insecure thinking taken seriously. And all of a sudden, people started looking approachable to me. I mean, it looked to me like we could really, I started to see clients that I would have called difficult as just people that are more than usually insecure. And I started treating the state of mind rather than the problems. So it's very subtle, and it kind of unfolds over time, but the deeper you go, the deeper you go. And ultimately, peace of mind would be a moment in time on earth when everybody knew they were okay. Then there would be nothing to fight about.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. You reminded me when you were saying about the first time that you went to to hear, I can't remember who it was you went to hear, but you realized it wasn't about, it was about the experience and not learning. And I remember the first meeting I went to, small meeting I went to in the UK, it was run by Rudy and Jenny at the time. And there was somebody there, and I had no idea, I had no concept of this. I was there to listen to the experts at the front of the room, who were Rudy and Jenny. Right. And there were other people kept popping up, and somebody particularly kept popping up and speaking, and I was getting really annoyed. It's like, I've come to hear Rudy and Jenny. Why do all these other people keep sharing? And so you were a lot wiser than I was, because the penny didn't drop for me that first time. But I think it's such an important piece of this, because most learning, seminars, teachings, conferences, we are taught to go, we are from the beginning, I suppose, from school, the teacher at the front of the room teaches, and we listen and we take in information. That's right. The model, and we write notes. Yeah. And this is a whole different learning experience, if learning is the right word. But as you say, it's an experience, and I think that's really different. That reminds me of something that you shared in the book as well, which I'd love for you to share here. When you talked about something that Roger Mills had shared with you about what was it? The levels of something. Other people. Equality. I remember it was equality. That was the equality was at the top, but it's not anything they ever teach you in graduate school. You don't learn to see people as the same as you. I realized in that, just listening to Roger that one time, I was in Miami,
And it was like during the first year that I was involved with the principals, there weren't that very many people doing it. And I went down to Miami for a conference that was being held by the 2 or 3 people that were working in Miami at that time. And Roger was living in Coral Gables, which is right outside of Miami, and working. That was when he was doing the Modelo project. So he was, I called him because I met him before, and when he was in Bradenton. And I asked him, I said, I'm in Miami. Do you want to have dinner? And he said, yeah. He said, Clyde T's down here. This before they were married. He said, Clyde T's here. Let's have dinner. He said, but I've got to do a seminar right before dinner. Do you want to come to the seminar? And then we'll just go from there. And I said, sure. That's why I was there to learn. So I went to his seminar, and he was talking to social workers, and it was quite an impactful thing. There were many stories out of that seminar, but the one thing that really struck me is he put this chart up on the board, and it's a very simple thing. So you can, I don't have a whiteboard or anything. I'm not going to take time to write anything down, but so at the bottom was commiseration. And the next level up from commiseration was sympathy. And the next level up from sympathy was empathy. And the next level up from empathy was compassion, which I thought, oh, that's nice. And then he drew another line and he wrote equality. And I thought, equality, what the hell does that mean? And then he explained, he said, we live in a world in which, in a one up, one down world. So there are experts, and then there are these poor people that don't know shit, basically. And the experts are out there helping the other people. They feel so sorry for them because they don't know what they know. So they're going to tell them. And he said, that's a terrible world because it doesn't give people any credit for innate well-being and wisdom. It doesn't point to that. It points to, you poor thing, you've had a tough life, and fortunately I know what to do about it. And he said it doesn't matter whether you're a social worker or an accountant or a lawyer or teacher. He kind of went through all the professions, and I thought that's true. It's a one-up world. That's what I do. I'm a consultant. I know something you don't know. And I'm listening to him talk, and then I'm thinking, but why wouldn't like compassion be good? So I could see, commiseration. You don't want to get on the same level of unhappiness as your client and say, yeah, man, if that happened to me, I'd feel just as bad as you did, because then everybody's mad. And that's what causes people to, get in bed with their clients to be militant and obnoxious and, tear society down. So, but the next level up, I thought, well, sympathy. And I thought, no, sympathy is kind of pathetic, because if you feel sorry for people, what you're really saying is, boy, I'm glad I don't have your life, because you poor thing. and I'll try to help you, but it is terrible what's going on with you. And if you go up from there to empathy, it's like saying, well, I can identify with that feeling. And it's still acknowledging the force of bad feeling. It's still giving the person sort of permission to feel bad, given what's going on. It's still outside in. And then you get up to compassion. You get to compassion and you realize, it's the best you can do in an outside in world. You're still putting yourself in a position of, feeling sympathy and sorrow for that person's situation. But from compassion, you're trying to help them do better. But you still think that you know what to do and they're going to do better when you help them. And you have compassion because you realize that it's the human condition. And then Roger said, but the work that we're doing, the work that I'm trying to explain to you people, has none of those qualities. When we look at our clients, we see ourselves. When we look at our client, we see a person who's perfectly healthy. They just don't know it at the moment. We don't look at a person who has problems, who has something wrong with it. We're not interested in their problem. We're not interested in their problems. We're not interested in going into the details. And you could see these social workers like squirming, because social workers are problem solvers. Some of you, I'm sure, know that. And you could see them kind of squirming. But then this miraculous thing happened. And this isn't in the book, but this miraculous thing happened. There was one woman in the group that had been very argumentative with Roger from the time he started talking. And this was back in the 80s. And she was a very proud, a tall, gorgeous, regal looking, proud Black woman. And she was completely dressed in like a long dashiki type, thing with a like a turban. She was gorgeous. She looked like a princess or a queen. And she was quite forceful, put it that way. And she kept standing up and challenging Roger, and he would acknowledge her and let her talk and then keep going. And she got up and she said, you just don't understand. You don't understand social work. I'm sorry to say this, Dr. Mills, you're a nice man, and I think you're doing some really good things with people, but you don't understand social work. And then she tells him this story about how she, is just so burnt out and so exhausted, and that she helps these kids. She works with teenagers, and she helps them get off the streets, get off drugs, get out of gangs, get a job. And she says, they seem to be doing better. They come to our programs, and then we help them get a job, and they get a job. And then the first time something goes wrong, they go right back to drugs or the gang or whatever they were doing. And she said, they just don't give a damn. They don't care. They don't care about themselves. And Roger says, oh, really? And I'm thinking, where's he going to go? Because I could see he was going to engage her this time. And he said, well, you sound really exhausted. She said, I am. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of these kids. I hate what I do. I've tried and tried and tried, and it's hopeless. And Roger said, well, by Friday, you must really be feeling like you got to get some relief from that feeling. And she said, yeah, I do. And she said, and so he said, well, what do you do? And she said, she looked kind of sheepish. And she said to Roger, well, a friend and I go shopping. And we meet after work on Friday, and we go shopping every Friday, and I buy earrings. And she did have a spectacular pair of earrings on, I will say. And I buy earrings. I have a lot of earrings. And she said, as a matter of fact, it's come to be a problem with me and my husband, because he thinks I could never, he said, I won't live long enough to wear all those earrings. And he doesn't understand. But she says, I feel better after we've had a good time shopping together and so on and so forth. And he said, so you go back to a habit that isn't working for you that well to get relief. And there was this, a silence fell on the room. And she didn't say anything. And she started to cry. Tears formed. And she said, oh my God, I'm just like my clients. Things start to go wrong, and I get depressed, and I get sick of I feel insecure about my job, and I'm not succeeding, and I buy earrings, and they go back to the street. She says, oh my God, I never realized that. And she sat down, and she was really crying. She had a friend who was comforting her. And Roger just went on with the seminar. And at the end of it, he went up to her and hugged her. And he said, we're all the same. Don't worry about it. And that's equality. That's, we all do that. And it's important to be able to see, no matter what your clients have done. And I've worked with some really, I've worked with people with PTSD. I've worked with people in jail. I've worked with people who are prostitutes. I've worked with people on drugs. I work with, troubled teenagers that have done terrible things. And I've worked with business executives who have done terrible things too. And I've worked with, violent abusers and everybody. And, you think, well, how can you possibly see those people as the same as you? But they are. They are. They just have found a way to get relief from the pressure of their own negative thinking in the only way they've ever seen, known, or figured out to do. And that's what we mean when we say we look at our clients as the same as us. It's deeper than the surface of our lives. It's deeper than, I'm a social worker and you're a juvenile delinquent. It's like we're both just human beings doing the best we can with what we know so far.
Judy, that was beautiful. I'm so glad you added the extra bit
Yeah.
on of the story.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Thank you for sharing that. It reminded me, I was listening recently to a Sid audio, and what impacted me was, he's pointing the same thing. He said, true love is loving the other like God.
Yeah.
Because that we're all God.
Mm-hmm.
And allowing somebody to be God. I think that was it. Allowing somebody to be God.
Somebody to be God.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. It was that allowing word. That hit me. It was like allowing somebody to be God. I mean, we're all so different and we're all behaving in such different ways. But hearing that, it's like allowing somebody to be God. Wow.
That's a beautiful thing when you get to that point and you can see it.
Yeah. And that's for me, and from what you're sharing and you have shared, is that's the difference of coaching from the 3 principles, coaching from the inside out, really seeing the innocence. I think innocence is a trigger word for some people.
Yeah, it is.
Would you speak about innocence? Because as I heard myself say it, I know I've been having a conversation with somebody recently about it, and it's a tricky one.
Well, innocence has a number of layers of meaning depending on your upbringing. And, for a lot of people that are very religious, no one's innocent. We're all born sinners. So they get very upset when you say all people, no matter what they're doing, are innocent. And I discovered that to my chagrin at WVU when we almost got thrown off campus for being anti the Judeo-Christian tradition because we talked about innocence. And it was a very fundamental churchy area, and people were very disturbed that we didn't think that we were all sinners. Now we are, I mean, when you get into a deeper conversation, first of all, the word sin in its original Aramaic form meant missing the mark. Now, when we say sin, we think evil, bad, horrible, nasty, gross. But really, missing the mark means you were trying to do something and you missed the mark. You didn't see it clearly enough. You didn't get to where you wanted to go. And that's the story of all of our lives, isn't it? We're always trying to, no matter what we see or know, we always hope for something deeper, something more. I mean, I think the whole idea of working in the principles is every day is a new day. I mean, I'm 79 years old. I've been doing this work for almost 40 years now. And I get up in the morning and I think, well, what am I going to learn today? I just don't know. But every day holds the promise that you're going to see something you never saw before. And that's really just an incredible thing. So innocence is the fact that we can only do the best we can do with what we know so far and what we're thinking in the moment. That's all it means. Is so if I am insecure and upset, it's like, why would a person, you ask yourself, why would a person strike out at a cashier in a grocery store and yell at them? This high school kid that's just trying to check out groceries and save up money. It's because has nothing to do with the other person. It has to do with the state of mind of the person in line in the grocery store. And they're upset because they think the groceries are too expensive and they don't have enough money to pay for everything. And it rang up for more than they thought it was going to be. And blah, 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 blah. And they will just spew, anger and upset at this poor young woman who just is bringing up what it says on the thing. And, why would anybody do that? It's because given the state of mind they're in and how their thinking is going at that moment, that's the best they can do. It's the best thing that all of us have done that. How many times have I would defy anyone on this call to say, oh, I've never blurted out something that I wouldn't have said no matter what to somebody, or I've never gotten angry for no reason, or I've never hurt somebody's feelings and not cared for a minute. You know, we do that. We don't mean to, we're not nasty people at heart, but when we get upset, we have a different level of consciousness and a different understanding of life and a different attachment to our own thinking. It's like when you're calm and peaceful and your mind is clear, your thoughts are interesting, but not that important. But when you're upset, every thought that comes to mind is, you got to act on it right now. You know, it's like, I mean, honestly, I've done many things. And I remember one time when I was working, and I was very young, and I was working in an office, and the person that was the secretary for the little group that worked in this office was, she barely, you know, minimum wage was hardly enough. And her husband had diabetes and they had a lot of medical bills, and she was barely making it. He couldn't work. But she was so sweet, and she was so nice, and she started having trouble with her back. And it was an old office, and the furniture was kind of crummy old office furniture, and the chairs weren't that comfortable. Nobody had an ergonomic chair, you know. And I was listening to her talk about her back, and I remembered that my one of my teachers had they'd bought a back cushion. It's kind of a specially made back cushion for the back of her chair when she had a bad back, and it really helped her. And I remembered that from like 8th grade or something. And I thought of that, and then I thought, oh, she comes in every day and she's always talking about her back. And I wasn't calm enough or quiet enough or mature enough or whatever to consider her circumstances and her life. And I said, well, Annie Mae, if it's such a big problem for you, why don't you just buy a cushion for the back of your chair? And she just looked at me and she said, well, I would if I could. And I just felt so terrible. I felt so terrible. I mean, I was like 21 when this happened, and I still remember it because I just thought, oh my God, why didn't I just buy her a cushion? You know, this poor woman, she's told us about her husband and their medical bills and the problems they have. And of course, she's not going to buy herself a cushion. But, you know, in the state of mind I was in at the time, and my mind was going so fast, I just blurted out the first thing that came to mind. Well, we've all done that. Does that make us evil? Just means we're all people, and we're doing the best we can with the thinking that we have. So in a sense, I'm not mad at myself for doing that. I hope to learn from it. You know, when I think back on it, I think I'm going to try, and every time in my life that I feel compelled to blurt something out, to step back a minute and take a deep breath, but I don't always do that, because our state of mind determines the level of compassion and connection and equality that we feel with people. And the lower you are in your level of security, the more insecure you are, the more you're thinking about yourself, and other people don't have much space in your thinking. Go into survival.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful. I'm aware that we're halfway through. This is where I hand over the mic to anybody else here who would like to ask Judy a question or share something.
Yeah.
I
love questions, so please feel free. Don't if
Don't
I
be
can't
shy.
answer it, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay, Ellen, there you go.
Hi, Ellen.
Yay, good to see you and
Good to
both of
see you
you
too.
and everyone else. I've been really curious about the habit of pushing repeat on the disturbing thoughts, and how much easier it is than to push repeat on the you know. And I mean, I see that I'm waking up sooner to it. Like, that's the good news, is that instead of going for hours or days,
Yeah.
Just really curious about that.
You know, my answer to that is probably my answer, and it's more or less of a theory that I have about it, but I think people get frightened by their more disturbing thoughts, and their intellect gets triggered and they want to solve it. They want to put it to rest. And the thoughts that we have, you know, when you think about it, and I remember Bill Pettit telling me one time, if you work in a mental health institution and you're working on a ward, everybody has lucid moments, no matter what their diagnosis is. He said, you'll see patients doing, and he said, sometimes you'll see people. I remember him telling a story about a book that I can't remember the name of now, but that we both read at the time, about this psychiatrist who was crippled. And he was in a wheelchair, and he was on the ward of this place. And one of the most dysfunctional people on the ward was, you know, watching him as he was wheeling himself around and talking to other people. And somebody got very upset and angry and dumped him over in his wheelchair. And suddenly this guy that everybody thought was just completely out of it and totally crazy came over and gently picked him up, straightened up the wheelchair, set him back in the wheelchair, and said, don't you realize the man is crippled? Leave him alone. And you know, that's one of those moments of clarity that you don't expect, you know, from somebody who's babbling in the corner, but everybody has it. But chances are very good that if a therapist came in 2 hours later and asked the guy, do you remember what you did with the guy in the wheelchair? He wouldn't even remember it, you know, because it was just one of those things that he suddenly, his mind cleared, something got triggered, some kindness awakened in him, and he did that. So we have a tendency to take our positive thoughts for granted and just, you know, let them go. And the negative thoughts, the upsetting thoughts, the fearful thoughts, any kind of thoughts that kind of disturb us or frighten us or make us anxious, we feel like, oh, got to deal with that. And that's why we keep going back to them, to make sure that we've got them under control. You know, that's my theory. Now I could be wrong, but that's what I think. Yeah.
No, that's really helpful. And just as you were saying that, even for me, even simpler, I'm just giving them more attention.
Right.
I'm you know, because they have a higher frequency, like a repetition.
They trigger something.
Yeah.
You know, whereas, you know, happy thoughts are just moment to moment. They're just like butterflies flying around. They, oh, that was pretty. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thanks for being here.
Great to
and
see you.
yeah, it's so good to see you. And I'm happy for you being with your family and your new life there.
Oh, thank you.
And I just want to say, for anyone that doesn't know, the podcast Psychology Has It Backwards, it's phenomenal.
Oh, geez.
The short little 20-25 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm doing dishes or housework and my clients have really benefited from it because it's so practical.
Yeah. Well, that's Chris and I are kind of like, we live in the real world. Let's put it that way, you know?
Right.
And we all deal with people that have very practical problems, you know, but also I think that that it's very hard to say psychology has it backwards in professional circles, because it sounds like an insult, but it's just a statement. And, you know, as a matter of fact, we were at that conference in California that you were at when we thought of the title. That's when we started doing them.
Oh, fun.
Because I said, you know, that the thing is, if we say that, that's really what people have to see, is that everything, all the assumptions that there's something wrong with people and people are broken that drive our mental health system now are backwards. Because there's nothing wrong with people and the system is broken. You know? Yeah.
No, I love that you know, followed the wisdom that came through about the title, because I think it's a very powerful title.
Yeah. Well, it does make,
even if you don't agree with it, it would make you curious, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, 100% agree. I did say that to Chris, I think at the time. I thought it was a very courageous title as well. Courageous to put yourselves out there and say that. Yeah.
Well, we're old, you know. It's like,
don't care.
So what if they shoot us, you know?
think there'd be a lot of people that cared, actually, Judy. But yeah, but it's great because because you will get people coming and having a look at it just to say, what are they talking about? And how dare they?
How dare they?
Yeah,
We get some of that. We get some people saying, how dare you?
do. Yeah.
But the thing is, they can't really argue with us either. Because that's, if you keep it practical in practical life, what common sense makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh.
Anybody else out there have a question or a comment or
Comment? Yeah.
anything to
Ask me anything.
to Judy?
I may or may not answer it, but I'll try.
And if not, it'll be back to me to ask questions, and I can do that too. Okay, well, while we're waiting, somebody says it's
Oh,
true.
wait,
Doing this work has kept Judy looking younger and younger. I agree. Totally.
Oh my God,
Always
Spiro's
so
here. Hi,
glamorous.
Spiro. Hi.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Hi, Judy, how are you?
I haven't seen you forever.
I know, and I kept saying from West Virginia, my oasis and wonderful times, and here we are when this crazy pandemic stuff's over, where we have to make up for a lot of it.
Are you still in Orlando?
Citrus Hills. Yep.
Citrus Hills? Yeah. I'm sorry, I was in Florida. All that. Oh, look at the puppy.
Oh. This is my new one. You remember the white Bichon? So
yeah, I do remember the white Bichon. Oh, adorable. So happy.
I love you dearly, you know that, and I read your section of the book. It's so funny because since we're being open, I'll share something. I remember when you said something to me that I was definitely insecure of just being open to whoever and whatever, because when I first had this understanding, I was like, well, I've got to get everybody to do this to understand.
Oh yeah, it'd be wonderful if we could do that.
Yeah. And lately I've been realizing by everybody doing it would make me happier. And I had totally, in the last day or two, went from inside out to an outside experience. And it wasn't until I was saying something to a friend that she gently kind of slapped me back into reality and said, oh, okay, so everybody else would make you happier if they had peace of mind, and I would. So
yeah. No, it's kind of better to be happy first. And then everybody else is, what I found is that when people are happy, other people are curious about how you got that way. Makes it easier to talk about it. Well, I'm very happy to see you, and I hope you'll stay in touch because I have thought of you often.
I did. In fact, I said to Matthew, I said, come and see Judy. She looks awesome.
Thank you. So I see Chris.
Chris has his hand up. Chris, would you like to unmute?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was just curious about when you said about how, as humans, we get into like insecure states of mind. And like my observations, it seems like what is it that like for some people seem to stay there?
Yeah.
Some people don't. I guess like the easy answer would be like insight, but I don't know. Just curious.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I am actually I'm writing a book about that. As a matter of fact, right now I'm writing a book. I'll tell you the title if everybody promises me you won't steal it and write it first. But anyway, and it was a title that was suggested to me by a client that I had years ago, and it's Farewell to Crazy Town. And I'm hoping it will have a general appeal to a broader audience and another explanation of the 3 principles according to Sydney Hanks. So anyway, and one of the things that I'm using first interviews with clients in the book to, without saying much about it, to show what's the difference between what we do and what happens in traditional psychology. And the common sort of thing that comes up all the time when we start talking to people is they expect us to want to talk about their problems, because the world has taught us that in order to feel better, we have to solve all of our problems. And so we always have our problems on our mind. And so the first story that I tell in the book, which I can share a little of with you now, is about this young woman that came in to see me who had been she had been trafficked since she was 13 years old, and she had been in a program that rescues prostitutes off the street. And so she'd been in a safe house for a year, and then she was now trying to transition into real life. And part of that was this program allowed for a certain amount of counseling. So I was a contractor for this program. And so she comes in and she's very cynical. And she starts telling me about what a terrible life she's had and blah, 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 blah. And I stopped her and I said, I don't really need to hear about that. And she says, well, what are we supposed to talk about? I'm a mentally ill person and you're a counselor. What do you expect me to talk about? Are we supposed to sit here and talk about the music we like or what? And I said, no, I don't do that. I talk about what's healthy in you, finding your own resilience and your own mental health. And she just laughed at me. And she said, listen, I've been in counseling most of my life. I've been in and out of rehab. I've been in and out of jail. I've been sent to all kinds of therapists. Everybody has diagnosed me with something. I'm mentally ill. And every counselor has told me we have to go back to the beginning and work our way forward from all the things that went wrong to figure them out and sort them out and get them right. And I said, well, unfortunately, they're paying for you to see me and I'm not them. That's not what I do. And so this is the part that I wanted to share with you, and I won't go through all of it, but so I said to her, could you tell me what life would look like to you if you could have happiness? What would happiness look like? And at first she got really angry, and she's like this, and she says, how the hell would I know? I've never been happy, and I said, well, it doesn't mean you don't have an idea about it. And so she kind of drifted into this reverie, and she's staring out the window, and I just sat there for quite a while. And all of a sudden she turned to me and she said, okay, I guess it would mean that I would have like regular friends that weren't in trouble and weren't in jail, and that we would just do normal stuff, like we would go to our jobs and we would come home after our jobs and we would all have dogs, and we would take our dogs and run with our dogs on the beach. And then we would sit around and just goof off and watch TV and yeah. Now, to me, that was a whole new thought to her. It had never dawned on her to allow herself to even imagine that, because every time she went to talk to somebody about herself, it was about the problems. So I think what life has taught us, given the culture that we live in, is that you have to deal with your problems all the time. That's your job as a human being, is to fix your problems and fix yourself that way. And if that's what you think you're supposed to do, your intellect is happy to accommodate it. And that's when we talked about finding, peace of mind in the first part of this conversation, is that it's very hard to shut the intellect off. It's really hard. It's really hard to get it quiet enough to allow for different thinking, allow yourself to dream, to imagine, to create something new for yourself. So I think the easy answer is that it's habitual thinking, but I think habitual thinking is really the way we've learned to think because of the world that we observe around us and what people tell us. We've learned to think that, that's what life is about. And, it's interesting to me, just looking at the world at large now, how people across the globe in all kinds of different cultures see one form or another of oppression and violence as an answer to solving their problems. And that goes back to that one up, one down. If I'm the smarter one, or I'm the one in control, I'm going to be happier than these other poor suckers. And all of that is just misunderstood. People who have totally lost touch with their innate wisdom and common sense. I don't know if that approaches your question, but that's what occurred to me.
Yeah, no, that was definitely approached it. What came to mind for me was like just just the idea that we can like dream a different dream
Yeah.
is really powerful. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's the freedom to think. You know, when you discover, I mean, this is a really big, important thing, that thought is a power. And we're always focused on the content of what we have thought, but to think is a power. That's the power we have to change our life. You know, we can't change our life by thinking about what we've already done. You know, then we're just repeating it. But as soon as we get the sense of the power to think, that I don't know what I'm going to think next. Who knows what could come to mind? I don't, until I know that wisdom is something that is going to surprise me every time, because it's something I've never thought of before. And but it's available to me because it's the universal human capacity, not because I'm special, but because all of us are the same in that regard. As soon as we're quiet, that's what happens. That's an amazing transformative experience, to know I am the thinker. And in time after time in working with clients, what I've seen is the minute they wake up and think, oh, wait, you know, I'm keeping myself in this system that I've made up, not because I have to be there, but because that's all I ever think about. So, any other questions? Thank you, Chris.
thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
You guys are so quiet. That's nice, though.
Yeah. Well, just going on from what you were sharing there, and you know, I remember hearing that 90% of what we think is the same as yesterday, something like
Yeah.
that. And that was shocking to me when I first heard that. It's like, really? Could that be true? And of course, when I started making some conscious effort, if you like, to notice, it was like, yeah, I mean, really, my days in my mind are very, you know, were not so bad now, but still probably, you know, not far off from 90%, if I'm honest, because I forget. And it's like that habitual thinking just keeps going, and just keep listening to it, and just keep having the same experiences over and over again. And then I saw sometime in the last year that's very robotic. That was the word that came to me. It's like we're not designed to be robots. We're designed to be alive and experiencing it all. And yet it feels like a very robotic, because it's like something's been fed into the mind, and now we're just living from that place and not experiencing all the possibility that's out there for us to experience, all the colors of life, all the flavors of life. Most people don't know that. They just have no inkling at all.
You know, I think children know that, because they don't have much to think about. You know, they haven't built this whole storehouse of intellect that they've got to draw from. And so when you watch children playing, it's just amazingly resourceful. It's very interesting, because I was at somebody's house not too long ago, and they had just moved, and so they took me around to show me their new house, and they had this wonderful playroom for their kids, with just filled with toys. So we're sitting there in the living room talking, and the two little boys come in with a cardboard box that was in the trash and some kitchen implements, and they're playing at making a car. I mean, they're in their own mind, they're creating a car with these whatever they brought into the living room. And their mother says to them, "You have a whole room full of toys. What are you doing playing with trash and kitchen stuff?" And the kids said, "Well, we can make up whatever we want." And I thought, the wisdom of children. That's true. had to laugh. I said to her, sometimes I think we overdo the pre-made toys that tell them exactly how to play with them. It was kind of
Yeah.
easier back in the day when nobody had toys and you just played with whatever was in hand. And that's kind of how life is. I think, like you start a business and it's all exciting and new, and then you get into the, you write, a manual, a personnel manual and everything else. And then pretty soon you've got it organized, and then you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I remember I was running a business that I started when I first found the principles. And the first thing that occurred to me was that everything I was doing was contrary to human nature. I mean, it occurred to me I had to change my whole business. And then I got scared for a minute and I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do that? And then I sat and I thought, okay, calm down, just give yourself a chance here. And I realized that I had modeled my business on somebody that I learned from who was running a similar business in another place. And I didn't give it a lot of thought. I just assumed that that's how you did that kind of business. I had never asked myself, if I could design this business from scratch, what would I do? Until my mind quieted down enough to be free. And when I thought of that, I thought, no, we're doing everything wrong. It's not working, because it was working in the sense that we were good at what we did, but we were killing ourselves. And we didn't have to make it that hard. And I remember going in to talk to my staff, and they were like, whoa, that's a lot of change. And I said, yeah, but it's going to reflect on this. We're going to quiet down and we're going to see this through, because it's going to make life much easier for us and our clients. And they trusted me enough to go along with it. And it really did. It transformed my whole experience in my business. I was ready to just sell it and get out of it, because it was so overwhelmingly exhausting and stressful. And then I fell in love with it. So, but most people don't do that, because they join they go to work, or they join a system, or they become part of an existing whatever, and they do it the way they're supposed to. And nobody ever stops and says, let's talk about whether this is really the best way we could do this. And the same thing is true with our life.
Stopping and reflecting and taking stock of, is this how I want to be living? Is this the kind of life that I really want to be living? Yeah. That's what coaching is about a lot of the time, really.
Yeah.
Asking yourself what you truly want, what sort of life you really want to be living. How do I want to live? Yeah, be feeling alive or feeling like a robot. It's
Right.
a big difference.
Right.
Well, we're going up to the end of to the top of the hour. Is there anybody who has a last question, comment? And if not, we can ask Judy how people can get in touch with her. If anybody, if you're willing to,
Yeah,
you would
sure.
like people to.
Well, I noticed that my website is at the back of your book, so that's easy.
I'll share that.
Because if you go to contact me on the website, the mail that comes through there gets forwarded to my personal email. So sometimes it takes a couple of days, but I get it. So that's one way to get in touch with me. I live in Pittsburgh, and I'm not working at a particular place. I work for myself from home, and I'm, doing a lot of webinars and I do a lot of mentoring. I don't really call it coaching, but I guess coaches would. And I try to work as much as possible with people that are already involved in this work and are trying to take it to a new level in their own practice or their own life. I am very I'm interested in, for the remaining years of my life, I want to finish this second book that I'm writing as soon as I can. And because I have a third one that's percolating back there somewhere. And I was kind of a late bloomer. I'm like the grandma Moses of book writing. But anyway, but I'm very interested in making, the last thing I promised Sid Banks, let's put it this way, the last time I saw Sid Banks was probably 4 months before he died. And he knew, we all knew that the end was coming. You know, he knew he had cancer, wasn't going to get any better, and it was a matter of time, and he was very frail. So he saw a few of us that he wanted to have some time with at the very end. And I'm sure he asked everybody that's the same thing in one way or another, I think, as we've compared notes. But, you know, he said, Judy, don't mess this up. You know? He said, don't get persuaded about mixing it with other things or making compromises. He said, you know, that's been the problem all along, as people gets going, and a lot of people get interested in it, and then they think, oh, this would be great if we did it with this other thing. And he said, you know, because the principles are pure. It's a pure truth. And that sounds like an arrogant statement, but if you reflect on the principles and what they mean, it's not. And he said, and help people to see that there is no end to learning. There's no end to what you can see. There's no end, no matter how happy you are, no matter how deep you are, no matter how much you feel you've seen and learned, there's always more. So I've kind of dedicated myself to that as to be with people and explore how deep we can go. So I invite you into that conversation with anybody you work with.
Very grateful, Judy. Very grateful.
Well, I'm really grateful to you, Sheila. I think you've made a big contribution with this book, and I'm very happy to be part of it. And I hope that it brings a lot of people into the work. I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, that's my vision. Really, really truthfully. Lots of people are saying how they've loved the conversation, and they're looking forward to reading your new book. I didn't know you were writing a book. Beautiful.
Yeah, well, you'll find out if I ever finish it. Yeah.
You will. Grandma Moses.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I keep going to the gym, you know, I figure I got to stay alive to finish the book. Sorry, just knocked over something. Anyway.
Excellent.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah,
it was a pleasure.
Thank you everybody for being here, and look forward. Well, actually not next week. There's a week off next week. So 24th of August with Mark Howard is the next gathering. So
oh, wonderful. I love Mark.
Yeah, love Mark too. Okay, take care everybody.
Okay, take care. Great to see you all. And lovely to see you, Sheila. Okay.
Bye for now.